welcome back to another week of Chasing Frets. My name is Jason Shadrick from Premier Guitar.
And I'm Andy Ellis.
And we're going to wrap up our week with Steve here with an interesting look at his latest EP called Point of No Return. And it seemed like I kind of had one idea going into this talk about him, going in to talk to him about this record, and I kind of came away with a whole new idea of how to listen to this EP.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me, what came out of this conversation we had, is that Steve's been recording music for a long time and with many different people, a lot of heavyweights. He's played on stage a lot too, live, but he's been in the studio a lot. And he has the perspective of decades of watching approaches to technology change and approaches to musical styles change. And he shared a lot of that perspective with us. And as it turns out, I won't give this away, but as it turns out, Point of No Return is based on two different forms of musical expression, one that's live on stage and one that's created in the studio. And he'll tell us all about it.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing to me that Steve brought up is how involved his son was, not only on the production, because they were kind of making this a DIY thing, but how, even though his son does play in the band that's featured on the recording, how his production fingerprints are all throughout this. And he even alluded to some things that I did not know about this song, about its arrangement, and how even the studio version differed from what the people in the room heard in the room that night.
Yep.
So, all right, we're going to dig into this final episode with Steve Kimock, and we'll be back next week. Thanks again. All right, everybody, we're back again with Steve Kimock. How you doing, Steve?
I'm not unwell, thank you.
It's been, I gotta say, it's been such a joy having you, talking to you, nerding out on guitar stuff with you. And the focus of today's episode is going to be kind of around the story behind your new EP, Point of No Return, which is taken from a live gig last year, pre-pandemic times. So can you tell me a little bit about this piece and how you kind of divvied it up into three different suites?
Okay. First of all, the basic idea with the piece, right? And I kind of enjoy playing it because I have to show it to the band. You know, it's like, let's play this. And they're like, well, what do I play? You know, is there a chart or something like that? And I said, no, there's kind of a melody. And if you needed it to, tonicize somewhere, G is nice. But I think the idea is that it's supposed to be pandiatonic. And ideally, every note in two sharps should be there. You know, it should be some kind of, all the time, something. Like if you're playing G and you're playing B minor and you're playing D and you're playing A or whatever, as long as it's all going at once, I'm happy, you know. And if it kind of like everybody lands on A for a minute, great. They land on B minor. And that was the idea, was that it was supposed to just sort of like flop around and occasionally tonicize somewhere, but mostly G. So anyway, so it's me and my son John on the drums. Reed Mathis, who may be one of the most musical people working anywhere. I mean, he's a dude such a genius. It's ridiculous. And Jeff Clementi on the keys, who I would be impossible to say enough good stuff about. He's such a wonderful player. So it's those guys with, that's the setup. Let's play whatever you want, and if it goes somewhere, that's where it goes. So we played the gig. It was at the Sweetwater in Mill Valley, California, which is somehow one of those Bob Weir kind of places. He shows up occasionally, but he's not on this recording. We got the tape, and so I think it was the first song we played one night. It just was a good recording. And my son John, because he's of that generation that can put stuff on a timeline on a computer, he just put it on a timeline and went, I like this part of this, and I like this part of this, and I like this part of this. It started moving stuff around, right? So if there's, if there's a story to the tune at all, it's just that pentatonic melody in some kind of pandiatonic frame that got my son John, sort of production treatment. after the fact, because he's really good at that stuff, and everything that he does just sounds great to me. And he picks out neat stuff, and he just took it as sort of it's just like found that material and assembled. So that's what that is.
It's so interesting when you talk about found material. You guys improvised this piece of music in this room on this specific night, and it seems like it was not only was art being made on stage that night, but your son is kind of creating his own art by taking this material and kind of rearranging it.
Yeah, exactly. And his process is just fascinating to me. We've done a bunch of stuff together where it's just like there's a new way that people are recording. Again, I'm the old guy. I'm 65. When I got into recording, the idea was you're supposed to rehearse a band and you get the thing really tight and you go into the studio and time is money and you got to get all the sounds and blah, blah, blah. And it's just not true anymore. It's nothing like that anymore. You don't need a band. You don't need a studio. You don't need sounds. You don't need parts. You just like everything John does that, he'll find a sound or he'll find a lick somewhere. Or there's one bit that we did just before where he took a harmonic, a pedal, a steel guitar harmonic, harmonized it with itself and created this phrase out of it that, it sounded like Weather Report to me. It sounded like Zawal. I was like, where'd you get that? I just took one of your harmonics and pitch shifted it. Right. But literally anything on the tape is just holding a place for, some other sound to go on there, and it's really neat. So this is John finding a gig and going, okay, that's nice, but none of the actual content is there's nothing sacred about it. Mm-hmm. It's just there to push around. And then that's that's there. So yeah, you're absolutely correct.
I wonder how much we have Brian Eno to thank about changing that concept. You were talking about a band that rehearses and we go in and, well, we have the Beatles to thank about that too at the end of their run. But I sort of came into the Music Concrete idea by way of Brian Eno, I think. I think he was the doorway to sound as a malleable, you make a sound on your instrument and then you make music from that kind of idea. Does that ring a bell to you at all?
Yeah. I think once we had gotten to the idea of tape, that it was inevitable that people were going to manipulate tape. I did as a teen, did stuff not that different than Johnny does on the computer today. I'd take the microphones on my reel-to-reel machine, and it was like something that I got from my mom's school, probably like a Wallensack or something. But
I had one.
It had sound on sound, and I'd stick the microphones out the window in the morning, and I'd get the birds, and occasionally a car would go by or a door would slam, and I'd just let the reels roll, at like 6:30, and then put the next morning, said to be like Monday, Tuesday, and I just and then I'd play, but I'd get like the auto harp. I took the bars off the auto harp and I'd tune it to a scale or to a melody that I like, and then I'd sit across the room and throw shit at it, chain tools, and then I'd get a couple of days worth of auto harp going, a couple of days, and then speed it up or slow it down.
How has your son's production process, seeing him take something that you and him and other people have created in the moment and reconstructed it, how has that influenced you?
It's certainly humbling, but I'm at the point where I see what's going on now, how people are recording and the results they're getting, and I'm at a total loss. I don't. I literally know nothing. If you sent me, at this point, I'll probably never see the inside of like the old school studio again. It's just it's so unnecessary. But there was a point, back when I was working on the Zero stuff, at the record plant in Sausalito and stuff like that, where I knew how to run the Neve automation. I could run, I could work in an old room. I can barely work a computer. and I don't feel like it necessarily. You know what I mean? It's like I would really rather play the dobro, than learn Pro Tools. I'll let somebody else do the Pro Tools thing, and I'll play the dobro. Um, I mean, I think I think I just got outmoded, or just, kind of pushed out of the picture on some kind of engineering and production level. It's probably the evolution of the tools, old dog, new tricks kind of thing. I'd rather play music. So.
Take it. So going ahead, looking forward now, Steve, what do you have coming up on your schedule as far as projects and whatnot?
I am working on some stuff. Me and Johnny are trying to figure out how to do a whole new record here at the barn, which we're just about to begin. I have a giant pile of tunes waiting for me to put parts on as I figure out how to do this remote recording thing, where sending tracks back and forth. And like I just said, man, this is something that I need a lot of help with, or learn to figure it out, whatever. But people are sending me a lot of material to work on, and I'm just now kind of relearning how to work on it, courtesy of the pandemic. I mean, my thing for so many years now has just been, getting the gear and getting the guys and putting it in a truck and putting it on the road, and putting some asses in seats and playing the gig. And that's it, that's the bread and butter. It had nothing to do with recording. I couldn't afford to record. And now I can't afford not to. I don't know how. So,
well, you got John though, so that's good.
Eventually, it's gonna be okay. But when you're asking me, like, how do I do, what's coming up? It's like, wow, what's coming up for Steve is an ass kicking, on a production level, because I'm back to square one. Yeah. It's fine.
Well, Steve, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us this week and everything, and hope make sure people go out and check out. You can go Kimock.com to check out your website and everything, the new EP and everything else that you and your son are cooking up in the barn there.
I love it. All right. Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week.